So as you're getting logged into the course, this is just a sneak peek at what's there. And this site and this course will be up for quite some time, as Sean said, in the foreseeable future. So you can come back here and access the information here. And I'll check in after the session and over the next few days to see if anyone posts any questions that need my response. So there's a discussion forum, there's a glossary, and then copies of the presentation as Flash and as a PDF there available for you. All right. So teaching with Moodle, best practices for course design. My name is Michelle Moore. I'm the Chief Evangelist for Remote Learner. I'm really here on behalf of Remote Learner UK, formerly TEPIC. Many of you may know Sean Keogh and TEPIC. We've recently merged, and so now we are Remote Learner and Remote Learner UK, and really glad to be here and working with him. So, all right, so as we dig in, I want to provide a disclaimer first. First, I think best practices in Moodle course design are still evolving. I think that, you know, Moodle's been around a while, but online course design in general, people are still figuring it out. There's lots of bad course design out there. There's a lot of stuff that's getting better, but it's still evolving. So, yeah, what you see today may not be the same best practices I would profess tomorrow. Second, know and consider your audience. Some of these items you may look at and go, there's no way that would fly with my students. There's no way that makes sense in my course. Okay, I'll buy that. There are a few of those things in this presentation that I'll point to, and I'll go, you have to have some good money to convince me that you shouldn't be doing this. There are some things that I'd say are hard and fast rules, but there are other things that you really need to, first and foremost, consider your audience. That's really the driving factor behind what's the best practice in your course. And then last but not least, do what you can. I think the idea here with today's presentation is to raise awareness, to make you aware of what the best practices are, so that as you build courses and revise courses, you can start to make better decisions. I wouldn't expect anyone to walk away from this presentation and try to apply everything that we talk about. Pick one thing, change it, update it. You don't have to do it all at once. Don't get overwhelmed and not do anything just because you can't do everything. Take it in bits and pieces. So as we go through these slides, what you'll see here would be a variety of screen captures that I've taken from real live Moodle courses that I've run across. And the screen captures are designed to illustrate some of the good stuff and some of the not so good stuff. Hopefully you'll recognize yourself in the good slides and not the others. So let's start with this first one. This one's fairly straightforward. Don't use more than 3 font styles per page. People get really excited about the different tools on the toolbar, and they use multiple fonts. When we talk about 3 font styles, we're talking about size, color, font style, everything. So as we look at this course page here, we see Welcome to Moodle in red. That counts as 1. We see the text below. That's black. That counts as 2. We see the links. They're in blue. That counts as 3. No more. The green counts as 4. And just thinking about today's government, that looks like yet another style and font and color. They've exceeded their limit. This isn't anything near as bad as I've seen. I've seen some pretty incredible courses. But you really want to keep it simple. The more font styles, the more busyness you have going on the page, actually increases the cognitive load for your learners. Try throwing out that argument, right? I'd run into teachers who are like, oh, but it's got to be fun, it's got to be colorful. Okay, but let me tell you this. You know, if you tell them it's ugly, that's not going to go very far with them. But if you say it increases the cognitive load for your learners, research says, they have a really hard time arguing with that. What that means is your students are spending more time trying to process the text that's on the page than actually reading and understanding what it is you're saying. So what would you rather have them do? Do you want them looking at the content, you know, understanding the content, or trying to interpret it? So here's an example of a nicely done course. Do maintain consistency. Pick a style, stick with it. There's a lot to be said for a nice, simple, clean layout. Don't use the course page for your content. Think about the course page as a launching pad. As I look at this course here, we have this paragraph at the top. Why do you do it? How do you do it? All of this information. Again, I've seen worse examples. This isn't as bad as it could get. but I've seen people deliver their entire course pretty much on the course page. And really use the course page as a launch pad. Let your learners start there and then branch into the content. So do use the course page as a launch pad. Again, simplicity is good. One of the rules of thumb that I try to follow in my own courses as I look at them is I would like to be able to see one complete topic or one complete section on the screen at a time. So when I'm looking at a unit of content or a week's worth of content, I can see it all in one chunk. So if I can see a couple more and still, get through the course and have the information I need, that's fine too. But if you start to get longer than that, then you might think about chunking it a bit more, asking yourself what's really on that page that needs to be there and what can I remove. Don't be the one doing all the work. So this is a lovely, usage of the quiz module here. But who's making all the quizzes most likely? Are you awake? Who's making these quizzes? The teacher, right? Okay, so who's doing all the work? The teacher. So these quizzes may have a ton of value for the students. Maybe they're practice quizzes, things like that. They're useful, but I'd say branch out. Give your students opportunities. Even if you're in love with the quiz and you want to use it over and over again, and who wouldn't be, right? You can actually turn the permissions to create the quiz over to the students. So you can create what's called a question creator role. Let the students create the quiz questions, use those inside the quiz. Then you can take advantage of quizzes. You can use quizzes, have the value of quizzes, but the students are doing the work. They're creating the quiz questions. But yeah, again, think about branching out a bit. Okay. So do let the students participate and collaborate. There are a lot of really great tools in Moodle that allow learners to engage with each other. This course shows a couple of examples of forums. Think about wikis. The blog in Moodle 2 is much improved. There's some possibilities there. The workshop that many of you learned about this morning really has some options for collaboration, peer assessment, peer review. There are many, many ways to allow the learners to talk to each other, engage with each other, and really, that's where the learning happens. Don't make your users scroll side to side. This course here illustrates something I see too often. People put in a really nice banner across the top center section of the page, but then it shoves the blocks off to the right, and students, to see the entire course page, have to scroll side to side. Be very wary of the computer you use to develop your courses. There are lots and lots of laptops and screens out there now that are widescreen. I have an IBM Lenovo. It's this wide, not this wide. There are lots of pages that I go to that I have to end up scrolling side to side. Be very careful, especially with Moodle 2, because Moodle 2, it seems to be a bit easier to cross that boundary. And be aware of all your users. If you're really focusing on good course design, you want to try your courses in multiple browsers. Try the big three, and then try different monitors, try different operating systems. It all looks different. Everything impacts it. So do make sure your content fits. So you can have the images, you can have a nice look and feel, but make sure it fits on the course page, no matter what kind of computer they're using. Don't forget about the value of logs. I mentioned this because this course here has several links listed from the course page. These are done as labels. I can tell that they're labels because they don't have icons next to them. When a link is done as a label, or a link is done from an assignment, or a link is done from a forum, you lose the logging capability that you get when the link is done as a resource, right? If I do a link as a resource, I can go into the logs, I can go into the activity report, and I can tell that a student has visited that link. Now, in this case, if these links are absolutely necessary to complete an assignment, maybe I don't need the logs. The activity tells me. But be aware, especially in this case, if the links are going to be on the course page anyway, you might as well get the value of the logging. So turn those into resource links and have that additional information. And then don't overdo the activity names. Detailed activity names are helpful, but I saw this one and I was like, oh my goodness, you've got to be kidding me. I don't know if you can see because of the lack of contrast in this theme, but that name actually wraps around 2 lines in the header bar. So I like the idea of what this instructor is trying to do here. It's trying to tell the student what to expect, but I would prefer to do that as a label and then put a link to the audio so that you're not messing up your navigation. Again, this is another issue that you want to watch in Moodle 2. In Moodle 2, the navigation bar, or the breadcrumb trail, has a lot more stuff in it. So it's much easier to exceed that limit and cause things to start wrapping. So be very careful with that. So do keep your activity names short and sweet. Keep them to the point. Do use labels to guide students. So labels can be a really useful way to differentiate content within your course. How many of you use labels? You know what I'm talking about? Okay, good majority. I still run into people occasionally that have never used a label at all. And we get those courses that have 27 items all in a row with no differentiation. So use the labels. It's good stuff. And then don't be afraid of white space. You saw in the course before things were indented. You had some nice white space. This course here, they've got some labels and things in here, but there'd be a huge difference if they would indent some of the items below the labels, if they'd add a line break into the labels. White space is a good thing. Don't be afraid of it. Just don't use too much. Do use topic summaries for titles. And this is probably a Moodle 1.9 specific tip. In Moodle 2.0, they've changed. You now have section names. And they function much better. They function very nicely. But and the idea here is sometimes people use the topic summary to write a whole introductory paragraph about the unit. If you put your whole introductory paragraph in the topic summary, it messes up navigation. So keep the topic summary short and sweet, succinct, and then use a label to do the, in this unit we're going to address. In Moodle 2, again, they've added a section name for the title, and they have a specific field for that summary that works really just the way it's supposed to. So don't force users to scroll and scroll. As I look at courses, I often see a nice, big, pretty picture at the top of the course. It's a nice picture. It's related to the course. It's, it gives me a nice feel. But that's interesting for about the first 2 days. And then after that, I'm like, really? I have to scroll past that? And again, and again, and again. And as the instructor, you'll find that annoying as well. Resize that image. If you align it to the left or to the right, you can actually have the activities wrap around the image, so you get really nice placement. You still get the value of the picture, and a much better effect, like this one here. And do use images. They make a big difference. Do simplify delivery. And this is something I saw in the presentation just before mine this morning. She was talking about delivering everything from Moodle, like no Word documents, no PowerPoints, just build it all in Moodle. I would second that idea. I build as much content as possible in books and lessons. The value of this is that I can guarantee that if my students can get to my course, they can get to the content. There are no issues with, oops, I don't have the right version of Word, I couldn't get it to download, I don't know what to do when it says open or save. If I do this, they can get to the content. If I find a mistake in the content, I'm like 10 times, probably 100 times more likely to fix it here than if I have it in a Word document. If I have it in a Word document, I go, that'll wait until next time. Because it's too much work to download, upload, fix, yeah. So last but not least here is don't be afraid to branch out. This person obviously likes the hot potatoes module, which is really cool. But try something else. If you look at a lot of courses, what you see is a collection of documents. Maybe some forms, maybe some assignments. Pick one new tool today. Pick one new tool that you want to try and you want to implement, and try it out. You don't have to learn them all. Just take it to the next level of it. And then, for good measure, I've added a few tips related to Moodle 2. And I feel a bit bold trying to profess best practices for Moodle 2, given that it's really so new. But there are a few things that I found that I've run into as I'm teaching my own Moodle 2 course or my own course in Moodle 2 that maybe I can save someone else some trouble. So tip number 1, dock the blocks. The blocks I like to dock, how many times can we say that, are the navigation and the settings block. So when you log into the Moodle site as a student, you'll find the navigations and settings block right there in the middle of the page. There's a little icon in the top right corner of those blocks that will let you dock it. What I like about having the navigation and settings blocks docked is that those are blocks I need all sorts of places, that all over the place in Moodle I run into places where I need them. So I can access them everywhere when they're docked quite easily, and they're out of the way. They can get quite big, those blocks can, so if I have them spread out on the course page, it just eats up space. And in talking to other people who are using Moodle 2, I see they've done this same thing. So it just seems to be the inclination. Do give your learners completion tracking. I find a lot of people, when they're talking about Moodle 2, they're all excited about conditional activities. They don't talk as much about the completion tracking. And some people are even lumping them together, like it's conditional activities that has completion tracking. They are two separate features. Conditional activities, pretty cool if you need it, but I can live without it. Completion tracking is a huge win for Moodle 2. In Moodle 2, what completion tracking does is it allows the students to check mark. You know, as I go through the course, I've completed this, I've completed this, I've completed this. There's a progress report related to that, so the students can have this place and see, here's what I've done, here's what I haven't done. It is also possible to automate these things. If I want to have the completion change automatically based on the completion of a quiz, so completed the quiz, all right, check, that happens for you automatically. You submitted an assignment, check, you know, you've got a grade on it, that's when it checks. One thing I would caution you to think about, and I haven't decided how to handle this for myself, but I kind of have an inclination. My inclination in my graduate course is to set every activity so students can manually mark the activity as completed, because then I'm putting the power on them, and then they can know for them, they can develop a plan for themselves. Like when I receive a grade, I'm going to check it, or when I've submitted it, I'm going to check it, or maybe that's something I want to come back to, so I'm going to uncheck it. If I mix things up, if some things automatically check for them and some things don't, I might mess with their system. So I think you have to pick a plan, make a plan, communicate it to your students. Because I find students don't seem to be using this by themselves yet. I think some students have figured it out, and others not so much. So it might be something you need to add to your course orientation or your syllabus. Here's what this is for, and here's how this can help you. Okay. Don't overdo the conditional activities. This has been a concern of mine since the day they rolled out conditional activities, or they started talking about it. I've seen teachers, I've known teachers who you give them the control, they will take it, right? And they'll ask for more. They will lock everything down, one activity to the next. Students can't see anything until, you know, they've completed 5 other things and gotten grades on this 6th thing and, you know, whatever. Pick and choose when and where you really need the conditional activities, where they provide value for your students. So, yeah, be careful with them. Okay? And with that, again, all of this information is in the course. If you have other best practices to submit, please do so. I do have a few other resources and information in this glossary already. So there's a few books in here that I recommend. There's a few websites, a few other tips, auto-linking I like. So there's a place to comment, and there's a place to rate. So if you don't have your own best practices, you can do any of those things. So any best practices I've missed? Glaring, yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, 600 would, that would hold it pretty close. Yeah, it is pretty big. That would be, yeah, that would be a good start, because that would even work on monitors like mine. A height requirement might be nice, too. I worked with a school that they'd given all the teachers netbooks, and they had this beautiful theme, but the banner on the theme was this wide, and it took up half their screen. On these little netbook screens before they could get, that was just the theme, before they'd done anything else. So some height advice might be good. But would you mind posting that to the glossary? That's a great idea. Yeah, people need numbers. I can quantify it. Yes. Yeah, that's good. Okay. The number of blocks quite low? Yes. Yes. Let me repeat what he said, just in case others didn't hear. He said he likes to keep the number of blocks in his course down to a minimum. And in fact, in most courses, he'll do just one set of blocks down the right-hand side. I do that in a lot of my courses too, where if I'm teaching a new group of Moodle users, I will absolutely, without a doubt, just do one column of blocks. In my course, they're learning how to build with Moodle, and there are quite a few really useful tools, and I want to expose them to. So I'll start the course with a few blocks, and then I'll start to throw a few others in as they get more and more used to the environment. Also depends on the age group you're working with too, right? Different audiences seem to tolerate more busyness on the page. But that's an excellent, yeah. Will you add that one too? Because that's a really, really good idea. Well, I know some organizations, if they're going really all out, they actually have somebody dedicated to go through each course. So they have a team of instructional designers, and they have somebody whose job it is to look at the course in IE, to look at the course in Firefox, to look at it in Chrome, to test everything out. And then I think in that whole scheme, they were checking it on a couple different monitors too. And really, if you check it on a narrower monitor, or you make sure you're not designing in the widescreen view, your odds are better. But still, yeah, you really need to build it into your plan, because it'll always get you. You know, you think you're doing fine, and then you look at it on another browser, and you're like, oh, you know, the line breaks show up differently, and things like that. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I think we've got time for
Yes.
one more question, unfortunately.
Okay. Who's got the most money? RSS feeds to bring in live data so that every time students come in, they get something different. Yes, that's really cool. There are so many neat RSS feeds out there related to course content. People always surprise me with what they find that relates to their course. So that's good. If you have other questions or other best practices, please add to the glossary or to the discussion forum or after.
Or after the session,
Yes.
because we could keep going for the whole
Yes.
afternoon.
Oh, I know. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
That was lovely.